Hey Steve, my name is Scott McCullough. I'm originally from Montreal, Quebec, but I lived in Toronto for many years, and most recently Hamilton. I moved here about a year and a half ago. I play guitar, sing a bit, songwriter. Current bands are Rusty, which is still going, and a new band I've just joined with an old friend of mine, Roy Pike, who used to play in a band with Corky Lang from Mountain called the Royal So and So's, and that band's called the Electric Ants. We haven't done a live show yet, but it's the middle drummer from Rusty, myself, him, and another fellow named Scott Reynolds. So Rusty and the Electric Ants are the current bands. My influences, personal and musical. As a kid, I guess a big influence on me was my grandfather. He was like a Irish Scottish guy who immigrated to Montreal in the 30s, and I guess of his upbringing, like he used to tell me stories about Jackie Robinson, breaking the color barrier in Montreal, playing for the Montreal Royals, and so he kind of instilled in me at a young age, sort of what we were talking about, kind of an anti-racist thing. Like he sort of kind of because of his perspective, being Irish background, he kind of gave me a perspective of, not thinking that way. So he was a big influence on me, probably more so than my parents, even really. Musically, when I was a kid, I liked kind of silly stuff. Like I was a little too young for the Monkees, but I really liked the Partridge Family. So I was a big Partridge Family fan, and I used to like K-Tel Records, and I used to like those, the story songs of, like Johnny Horton kind of stuff and stuff like that. And then, I had a few teachers who were very influential as well. I can't remember all their names, but school, and then some people who got me involved in theater and stuff like that were, I guess, big influences as when I was a kid as well. What got me into punk, metal, and hardcore? Um, well, I'm kind of a first waver. I sort of, it's proto punk for me, whatever the word is you want to call it. Like I'd actually say it's Cream Magazine, because Cream Magazine got me into specifically Lester Bangs, got me into Lou Reed, the Velvet Underground, and specifically Iggy and the Stooges, who were my favorite band growing up. Like I listened to Raw Power every day for 4 years in a row because I was into that. And that stuff, that proto punk, led me directly into the first wave of punk rock. So when you know the New York bands started, like Patti Smith, Television,
Yes.
Ramones, and everything, and then the British bands followed just like a year later. Like I was in Montreal. I skipped off school in grade 10 to go buy the Sex Pistols single because it arrived on a boat from England, and the guy's like, "We'll have it in here on Monday, but we might not have it after Monday." So I went and got it. So I think it was really back then. It was no internet and everything. It was rock and roll magazines that got me into that stuff. So and then once I was listening to it, it led directly to punk, and then from punk it just kind of branched out because you had metal, you had hardcore, you had because I listened to everything from The Cure to the Gun Club. Like I just listened
Yep.
to everything.
Yep.
I was very wide taste. I listened to jazz too, for that matter. But I think that being a first waver, it just everything that came afterwards, I just gave it all a chance. Now I'm not the biggest metal fan in the world. I tend to like older metal, like Sabbath and everything else, and or for instance, I happen to think that the Bad Brains' Eye Against Eye
Well,
is a metal record because it sounds to me like a metal record, and I love that record. So yeah, the short answer is really rock magazines, because back then that's the way past Cream, then you had New York Rocker, you had Trouser Press, you had the Village Voice, there was a lot of The Enemy, there was a lot of rags to read, and that's how you found out about music. So that's basically how I got into it. Yeah. First concert and first punk rock show. My first proper concert is probably Kiss, the Destroyer tour, in '76 at the Montreal Forum. I can't remember who was opening. It was either Rush. Cheap Trick opened the next year, so it must have been Rush or Hammersmith or something. And I was still a Kiss fan at 14 years old. But I was already into punk rock in '76. So the next, my first punk rock show, which changed my life basically, was Iggy came twice to Montreal that year. There was the Bowie tour in March for The Idiot, and then Lust for Life was in October. Blondie opened the other one, but I saw the second one, and it was Le Plateau Auditorium, Iggy with the Lust for Life band, the Sales Brothers on drums and bass, and the Ramones opening. And it was, they just released, they put out they were much like Kiss, they put out 3 albums in 1 year. So Rocket to Russia had just dropped. And I went to this place in La Fontaine Park in Montreal, and I was only 15, and we were the youngest people in the audience, and no one even took our ticket. So we wandered in there. We didn't even bring weed because we thought, oh, we can't smoke weed and everything. And I'm very impressionable at 15, but it's the greatest show I've ever seen since and before. Like, it was amazing. And the thing that was freaked me out was the Ramones played, and then they left, and the fucking stupid Montreal audience booed them. And not me, we were yelling, yeah, yeah, and they booed them, and to their eternal credit, they came fucking out on stage again after the booing and said, thank you very much, and did an encore. And Dee Dee was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom! And they just hit it. And at that point, it was all over for me in punk rock. There was no more Kiss shows, no more Aerosmith shows. It was, it was punk rock from then on in. And still the greatest show I've ever seen.
Nice.
Favorite shows ever attended? Well, I went on about that Iggy and the Ramones show. That's probably my favorite. And honestly, that first Kiss show was pretty great too. It was only 14, and it was enjoyable at that age. It's odd. You've been to so many shows, it's hard to pick out things, but there's certain ones that stand out. I remember saw the Butthole Surfers at Fufuni Electrique. I don't know what year. It's like 88 maybe ish, and they had lost their drummer and one of the strippers or whatever. They were missing 2 people because they got food poisoning from Toronto, and they had played like the Warehouse in Toronto, and they brought their own PA and brought it into Fufuni Electrique, and I have never fucking heard a band as loud before or since, and the bass was so frighteningly loud. I must have been a little bit high. I had to go to the very back of the room because the bass was fucking with my heart rate. And the show was great. It was Buttholes, Gibby with his fucking knobs and everything. Yeah. But they were a stripped down version of the Buttholes. They were missing one of the drummers and a girl. And I remember that show affecting me fairly cerebrally. It was quite a thing to see. Another one, oddly enough, was when William New used to run Elvis Mondays at the Elmo Combo. Sometimes promoters would just drop a band in there because they had no other place to put them. And Morphine showed up. And and it was first time they'd been through Toronto. And the Elmo Combo was packed. And they're so different because just bass, sax, and drums. The whole audience just went zunk and just zeroed in on them. And you could literally hear a pin drop in that joint. No one made a sound till the end of the songs, and then clapped and went crazy. But I remember sitting there the whole night just glued. I didn't even think I went to the bathroom. I was just man, these guys are fucking great. And I'd never heard of them before, so I was just coming in, hadn't heard their music or anything. And I'm sure there's more, but I can't think of them right now. Maybe if one comes to me later, I'll think of it. And I should add to my favorite shows. Teenage Head. I only saw them for the first time in 1980 at a very small bar in the West Island of Montreal. There was only 15 people there. It was called the Maples Inn, and they were fucking so good. But people didn't even clap or get out of their chairs and really notice. But I probably between 1980 and 84, I saw them no less than 30 times maybe. And when I moved to Toronto in 84, they were playing right across the street from where I lived, Larry's Hideaway, and so I went to see them, and Larry's was packed, but I'm sure for them, playing Larry's, 6 years into their career wasn't a big deal. You could tell Frankie was kind of fucking around a little bit, and he put the mic in the crowd at some point, and I forget what I yelled into it because I've done this before. But he after whatever I yelled, he said, "Get that Iggy guy up here." And so I jumped up on stage, and he looked to Gordy, and he's like, "Let's play some Stooges songs." And you sing, he said to me. And so awesome. I forget. I think we started off with TVI. We did all Funhouse songs. We started out now, so I'm putting myself. It's not just the show that I saw because I was in the show now, but we did TVI, and then Nick Stipanitz got disgusted that Frank was like fucking up the show, and it was near the end of the night. So Nick just left, and of course Frank's a drummer, right? He was the original drummer in Teenage Head. So Frank's like, no, he says to me, just keep going, and he went back and played drums, and we did TVI, Loose, and Down on the Street, and I didn't know. Like, I was young, I was like 22, and I didn't know how to, do I keep going? So at the end of the third song, I just dove back into the crowd. And Frank goes, guess the show's over. And they just walked away. And and that's the first time I met them until I went up into Larry's dressing room and sort of tried to hang out with them, but they were not so fun to hang out with at the time. But anyway, it was a great show. Mostly because I got to participate. Oh, yeah. Craziest thing has ever happened at a show. Well, as you can imagine, we've had a few, but I did a little blog about this one on the Rusty site, so I'll mention it. The first Doughboys tour in '87, we kind of went down the Eastern Seaboard, and then Miami we played with Henry Rollins' first solo band, and then it was the Descendants and MIA. And one other band would show up the next day. Anyway, played in Miami. I met Henry. He was all friendly and nice. He actually said to me, "Oh, you drink beer before you play?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, like a lot of beer." And he's like, "I don't do that, you know." I'm like, "Well, you're an idiot." No, he was really nice to me. I was friendly to him. I was like, "Okay, Henry." And then the next night we're in Daytona Beach, and they've added another band on the bill, a band called Short Dogs Grow, and 5-band bill. We get in there, and the stage, it's like the Blues Brothers. The stage has got 2x4 framing and chicken wire covering the whole stage. And none of us had ever seen it, but we'd all seen the Blues Brothers, so we're like, what's up, chicken wire? And what the club says was, it's for insurance purposes, which was kind of a nebulous answer, but obviously things get out of hand. But anyway, that same night, I remember I brought a girl. There was 5 bands in the dressing room. It was really tight, and Henry was in there in the middle of this crowded dressing room, and he's doing all his calisthenics, because that's what he doesn't do, vocal warm-ups. He's doing fucking push-ups and sit-ups. And I'm staring at him, because it's a weird thing, right? I'm like looking at him, and he looks at me all angry, and he goes, "What the fuck are you looking at?" He says to me, and I'm like, "Nothing." And I just left the dressing room, because he's an intimidating guy, right? Yep. Anyway, we get up there, Descendants get up there, MIA, Short Time, so we all play behind the chicken wire, we do our thing, club is packed. And then Henry gets out there, and I wasn't a fan of that band's music. Like, it's kind of like prog punk to me, and it left me cold. But he gets out there behind the chicken wire, and he goes, "My mother always told me if I did this long enough, I'd end up in a cage." And then he jumped up on the chicken wire like a little spider, and he was hanging off it, and the crowd just surged forward and just began ripping this chicken wire structure down and breaking all the wood. And there were splinters, the 2x4s, and I moved to the back of the room because I didn't want to get hit in the eye with a stick. And it just descended into madness after that. Like, it became a full-blown kind of, not really a riot, but it was just so out of control that they called the cops and everything. And eventually the cops came, and that just caused more mayhem, and everyone was, it's about 400 or 500 people, and they're just running amok through the parking lot and on the beach. And it was just like, I've never seen a show go from 0 to 60 that quickly. Yeah. Like, it was like he said that sentence, jumped on the thing, and everything. Like, I don't even know if they got through a song. It was just madness. And I think that's the crazy. Like, I've seen a lot of crazy shit, but that was like instantaneous crazy. Like, we were all playing da 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 da, and Henry gets out there, and it was like one sentence, and everything just came tumbling down. Past and current bands. You want me to go right back to the very beginning?
You can, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think my high school band was called the Young Adults, which did nothing, do punk rock covers.
And then in university, I went to Kingston. I had a band, kind of a punk rock cover band called Boys Say No. And we took that band and we moved it to Toronto. Stopped playing punk rock covers when we opened for Personality Crisis de Cocktail. I changed the name of the band to Big King Corpse. And that band was my first original band. Played for a couple years in Toronto, 84 to 86. And the bass player left for California, so we disbanded, kind of, and that's when John Kastner left the Asexuals. Oh, I should mention, the summer before that, before I went back out to Kingston, I joined the Asexuals for a summer when they were still a West Island cover band in Montreal. Like, they were doing all punk rock covers, and they'd just written, like, the first 2 songs on that first single, Waiting for the Bus, something else. But we were playing, like, UK Subs and Dead Kennedys and just punk rock covers and stuff. And we only played 1 show that summer, and I missed it. So yeah, I did have a brief stint in the Asexuals. Nice. And then, because I'd known John since he was a kid, he called me up when he left the Asexuals. He said, I wanted to form a new band, and he had Brock Bytel, the drummer, already. So we started the Doughboys, which was in summer of 86. So I did the first album, the first tour, and I was out of the band by fall of 87. I got kicked out. I didn't come back to Montreal, but after that, I was in a band no one has really heard of except musicians from Toronto. We were called Luther Victim. We were together for quite a while, like a good 4 or 5 years, but only released 1 cassette. We recorded a ton of songs, but no one in the band had a sense for business. We didn't tour, and so we kind of just went nowhere. We did nothing. And then I moved back to Toronto, or Luther Victim filtered from Montreal back to Toronto. And when I got to Toronto, I joined this band called the Hubbards. It was Paul Emery and Steve Hubbard, and I forget the drummer's name. And it was brief. I was just in the band briefly, but they were really good songs, actually. Paul runs The Communist Daughter in Toronto, and he has a musical out called Rondo. Anyway, great songwriter. I was in that very briefly, and then that's around when Rusty started, like summer of '94. Ken and One Free Fall. We were friends since the '80s. We were neighbors at that point, living in Parkdale, and they kicked out the guitar player, or he left, or whatever. And Ken was like, you want to join the band? So I basically joined 3 One Free Fall guys, and me. I thought I was going to be playing in One Free Fall, but Ken was like, no, we're going to start a whole new band, new name, new songs, everything. And that's when Rusty was born. Okay. And we went from '94 to about 2000, and then we broke up for a decade, and then John Kastner booked us for North by Northeast in 2011, so we reformed. Our bass player was in England, so we had to fly him back. And we did that show, and then Jim went back to the UK, and after a year we were like, well, it seems people are interested in seeing us play. But Jim was an integral member of the band, but we said to him, hey, is it okay if we replace you and keep going? He's like, yeah, go ahead. Nice. So we got John Sutton from X of the Weaker Vans, Saskatoon, Winnipeg guy, and he joined. And so we've been, Rusty's kind of been back together since 2011. We don't play a lot, like 5-10 shows a year at most, and put out a new record in 2018 that didn't do much, but yeah, that band is still going. And I check my list here now. What else do I got? Oh, yeah. I was very briefly a Violtone. In 2012, Steve Leckie got me to put the band together. He wanted to do a reunion show. It was, Violtone's Mark 7. So we got Ian Blurton and John Sutton from Rusty and Damian Richardson. And we did a show at the Phoenix. So that was just a one-off show. Okay. But I was a Violtone for 4 months. And I guess the only thing now is like, well, Rusty's still going, and I've just started playing with my my upstairs neighbor and landlord and old friend Roy Pike, who directed some Rusty videos and used to direct videos for everyone. He also used to play in a band with Corky Lang from Mountain called they were called the Royal So-and-Sos, and that band's called the Electric Ants. So we've just been rehearsing. We haven't played a show yet, but they've been around for a while. I'm just tagging in as a guitar player. So I think that's all of them. Anyway. What do I like most about being a musician and dislike the most? I would say my favorite thing is really, actually, it's, truth be told, it's writing songs and recording in the studio is actually my favorite thing to do because, it's creation. You're making stuff up and you get to hear out sounds, and if it's good, it's not always good, but when it's good, you're like, wow, this is really cool, So I think songwriting and recording is actually my favorite part, although a close second is playing live shows, especially now when I don't have to do 300 shows a year. Like now playing live shows is really fun for me because, it's just that hour and a quarter. We don't play very long, an hour on stage. And, it's a blast, But I don't like all the other stuff surrounding it. I don't like getting in the truck or getting in the van. I don't like driving however many. Like when we did our tour for the new record in 2018, I rode with the opening band. Some guys were flying. But anyway, we went from Toronto to Quebec City. It was like 10 hours of sleet and rain and hell, and I was cramming this van, and the guys didn't pay attention to the way I told them to go through Montreal, so we wasted 2 hours getting through Montreal. Anyway, after 10 hours in that van, I was like, I'm never doing this fucking again. Like we used to have a saying in the old days of Rusty, touring in the winter, we used to call it the theater of death, because you'd be one guy driving, and all the other four guys would be staring out the front window at the snow, because you're glued to the road thinking you want to see when you go off the road and you die. So that's what I don't like. And favorite food, that's a bit of a hard one because I like all food and lots of it, but I'm gonna have to say there's a Rusty song called Punk where the line is, we can eat pizza every day, and if I had to choose, if you're only allowed to have one food the rest of your life, it would be pizza, specifically New York style, thin crust, cheese slice, very thin pizza. Although you might never poop again if you kept to eat pizza, but I like all food. Like Sammy Squid, I like Middle Eastern, I love Chinese, I love Thai, Asian. I like all food, but if I had to pick just one, it might be pizza. My most useless talent. I have a few, I think. I don't know. I'm really good at growing tomatoes, so that's not really a useless talent. But, here's something I'm not really good at, promoting bands. Yeah. And I'm wearing my Lightmare shirt today. We've got a three-piece band from Sudbury who are Rusty's favorite Canadian band. And their album, Dear Life, just dropped today or yesterday, I think. And it's on, wait, I wrote it down, Tarantula Tapes, produced by Bill Priddle from Treble Charger. And great band. When we played the Corktown, they opened for us this summer. Three-piece from Sudbury, kind of like Nirvana meets Matthew Sweet. Like they're poppy, they're punky, they're just great songwriters, great band, great people. They actually stayed in this little basement apartment after we played at night, and I just wanted to give them a shout out and get people to check them out and check out their new release, which I've just been listening to it on my phone, and the songs are great, and that's my useless talent. And of course, I want to give a shout out to Steve Reniewick and Stronger Than Ever Videos for doing this and for inviting me. I really appreciate it, and I've watched a lot of them, and they're really cool. You should check them out.